I'm just going to give you a brief overview of the LEAP initiative while Erin gets set up. Erin, you should be able to just share your screen. So the LEAP initiative is a three-level initiative that REBA developed in partnership with our Community Advisory Board of Young Adults. So it involves programming around mentorship and coaching, financial literacy, which is why we're here tonight, and access to scholarships, as well as other training. So we'll have other workshops and things you'll see coming, which we're excited about. And tonight's is a part of that second level. So we kind of touched on, I know Lisa talked about, asked for some information around mentorship and what those relationships have been like. And so we were able to really get some awesome feedback earlier tonight, and then from Lisa on how things are going. So I am going to move right along, if that's okay. Lisa, do you have anything else to add? I can't hear you. Okay, the chat is working. Erin, you are spotlit.
Perfect. Hey, everybody, sorry for that. I feel like now with virtual meetings and everything, there's no longer the hey, I got stuck in traffic. Now it's the hey, my internet wasn't working. I had to restart my computer. So apologies for coming on a little bit late. I did just have to restart my computer. For some reason, it just would not log me on. So if at any point I am going a little bit faster, because I know I am behind time by a little bit, please feel free to just use the chat to slow me down. And as well as that, throughout pretty much this whole entire kind of just presentation, I really will be asking a lot of questions. So I hope you all just use the chat as much as you want. If it's a easy question, if you're answering a question, hopefully I could just get to it right there. But at the end, there should be some time for questions. And if we're not able to get to questions, I still have my phone number, my email up. I'd love to chat with anybody who wants to dive deeper into things. But this is really just kind of a young adult's guide to financial fitness. Another way to word this would just be things that I wish that I knew when I was back in high school. So this is coming from me. Year out graduating from college. I'm a financial representative at the Bulfinch Group, but before that, I was in the College of Business at the University of Rhode Island. So these are things that I picked up through obviously working at my time as a financial representative so far, and back in college. So as I said before, if you think I'm going too fast, please just let me know. But we're gonna just go over some of the basic financial concerns for millennials, some phases of savings, as well as ways to actually save, some financial lessons that can be learned, and then some action ideas that we could all kind of stick to and implement for ourselves going forward. So just to really start, and feel free to use this chat box, but who is, and if whether you're still in college right now, just got out, or kind of just in the process, so who's paying for school or paying down student loans, or is going to be kind of thinking about at a time that they're eventually going to be paying for student loans? Is anybody kind of in that boat? Yep, I see a hand right now with Jacqueline. I see I am. Yeah, so as you can see, about 55% of all millennials, so that's anybody from the ages of 1980 to about 2002, have either dealt with paying off student loans or eventually will be paying off student. So another concern that's a top financial concern would be who's concerned about kind of meeting day-to-day expenses. So this could just be, getting gas, groceries, paying off utility bills, anything of the sorts for that. Feel free to use the chat too if you're. I see Jacqueline, but that's the only person that I can actually see. So. Yeah, so just under 50% of all millennials are actually worried about that as well. They see that as a top financial concern as well. And now for The last question that I have for everybody, and this can be, 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road. It doesn't mean that it's going to happen next year or even next month or anything, but who's eventually hoping that they're able to buy their own house? So, whether you're in your late 20s, early 30s, that you want to have your own house for yourself instead of renting throughout, your whole time kind of living. Anybody worried about that or concerned about that? Hoping to buy a home. Okay, awesome. Yes, if I don't get priced out. Exactly. Yeah, so just a little bit over a quarter of all millennials, sorry about that for changing the screen. Just about a quarter of all millennials are still thinking about just as you said, Liana, you know, whether it's even beneficial or financially sound for me to even buy a house. So that's something that we're going to be going over and how to save for things like that. Things like cars. Those high ticket items are going to be things that we're going to be talking about today. So right now we're just kind of getting off the starting blocks. For all of us, you're either in your late teens right now, or just starting in your 20s, around that area. And this is really when you're growing your income, and you're really getting your footing financially. So the best thing about being young and being in a conversation like this and starting to think about your finances is that time is on your side. So right now you want to make the most of it by beginning to save whatever you can and whenever you can. So before I even kind of jump into really anything, I just want to go over some financial terms, just so when I'm talking about things that you're not really confused about what I'm saying. So to start with interest, so interest is really just the cost of borrowing money. And so when you borrow money, you pay interest. And when you lend money, whether it's to the banks or using a savings account, wherever it is, you earn interest on that. So interest can be broken down into simple interest and compounding interest. So to kind of break them down and explain what they are, for simple interest, and let's just have an example that say you have $5,000 that you just put in an account. Um, if your interest rate on that is just 2%, over the course of the year, your account will earn the 5% times $5,000, apologies, times that 2%. So what that equals is about $100 in interest. So now when you start at the beginning of the year with $5,000, that 2% return will now net you $5,100. So that total interest that you're gaining is about $100 on that. So that's how simple interest works. It's really just the amount that you put in times whatever your interest amount is. So now compounding interest is a little bit different because obviously money and free money, which is interest, is fantastic. But where compound interest is a little bit different is that it grows gradually throughout the year and not just at a one-time thing, as well as it keeps compounding. So I just wanted to ask a really quick question for everybody. Um, if at the start of the next month, March, I came up to all of you and I said, would you rather have $1 million right here on March 1st? Or would you rather have a penny today that I doubled every single day for, let's just say it's about 30 days? In the chat box, feel free to answer that question. $1 million on March 1st or a penny doubled every single day up to March 30th. Anybody have any choices for that? $1 million up front, Jacqueline said. Million today, Destiny said. So that's exactly what everybody thinks. $1 million up front. Heck yeah, I'm going to take that money. But just to kind of show you how amazing compounding interest is that if you were to choose that a penny every single day and you stuck with it and you kept letting me double your money every single day for 30 days, instead of that $1 million on the 30th day, you would actually have $5,368,709. And that's all because of compounding interest. So that's to show you how much your money, just doubling it every single day or every single period, actually will grow. But it's also crazy to know that if you took that money out, say at 27 days, that $5 million is now only $671. Um, so just to kind of bring that back into the example that we just talked about. So yeah, Reba said, what? Yeah, it's crazy to think about. So kind of bringing it back to what we were just talking about, that if you were to have that $5,000 and you have the same exact 2% interest, but now it's not just compounded simply, but it's also compounded for your interest. That $5,000 at the end of the year is now $5,193. And I know it doesn't seem like a lot. You're like, oh, wow, it's just 93 cents more. But even though for now, it's just a difference of under $1, as your account balance grows and as you put more money into it, so does the overall interest that you're earning that's compounded. So compounding schedules is really just how often your interest payout gets calculated. The more often, the more you earn. So this is important to know that when you're looking at different accounts and maybe the account says here you're getting interest and it's compounded. There is a difference on whether it's compounding every year, every 6 months, or every month. And the more that it gets compounded throughout the year, the more your chances are for your money to grow. The next thing is just annual percentage yield, which is known as APY. I'm sure you're going to see that a lot when you're looking into credit cards, when you're looking into pretty much pretty much anything as you start looking into these accounts. But APY is just the total amount that your account will grow in a year, and that's including the compounding interest. So I'll be talking about APY a little bit later. So I wanted to just explain that to you. And then just lastly is just your principal balance. And that's basically just the amount of money that you put into your account minus all the interest. So as I kept saying, if your account started at day one with $5,000, that's your principal balance. So as we just talked about compounding interest, I really wanted to show you all the importance of being able to save your money right now, in kind of comparing it to if you were trying to play catch up and saving your money at 25 years old, 35 years old, 45 years old, 55 years old. So if we look at this, all four of these individuals are all trying to save $1 million by the time that they're 65. Where you see the 55-year-old is obviously starting a lot later. They don't really have that time on their hands. They don't really have the compounding interest. So they would have to save about $5,778 a month, just to reach that $1 million goal per retirement. Obviously, as it goes down, 45 years is about $1,920, all the way down to 25-year-old being $3,381, excuse me. But does anyone know and try to guess that if you were a 21-year-old right now, how much money you would have to save up how much money you would have to save monthly to reach a retirement amount of $1 million at 65? So if you were a 21-year-old right now, how much do you think you would have to save monthly to reach $1 million by the age of 60? You got $50 a month, a little bit more than that. 100, still a little bit more. Think about it. The 25 is for 381, so it's just 4 years less. 250. That's very close. So it's $284 that you need to invest monthly at the age of 21. And this is at using a 7% hypothetical rate of return. So that's obviously investing your money in, oh, I can add somebody to the waiting room, sorry. And that's obviously investing your money in an account that's growing at about 7%. So speaking of investing, and this is just talking about putting your money in places that is going to grow for you. It's an important part of ensuring that you can reach your goals and to be secure for whatever life throws at you. And obviously, I know you have to agree, we're all here for a reason to kind of learn more about financial literacy. But what I want to stress is that the most important thing that you do is that you invest early. So next, I'm going to be talking about a bunch of different accounts that you could put your money in. Some grow as small as half or a tenth of a percentage per year, and some are up into the 5-10% range. But the whole point is that if your money's growing more than the interest rates are, or um, more than it's nationally growing per year, in terms of their interest rate, you're making money. However, the side effect and the bad side of it is that a lot of people don't realize that just putting your money in a savings account or a checkings account, it's not growing more than the interest rate, and therefore you're technically losing money. Because $1 million now is not going to be the same thing as $1 million 20 years, 30 years down the road. Um, So actually looking at these different types of interest bearing accounts, um, I put down 5 different accounts and they all vary by the APY, so the annual percentage yield, as I said before. So I'm just going to go over all of them, and kind of explain what each one does. And so when you're looking at savings, by the way, um, any single person could have one of these accounts, could have two of these accounts, could have all 5 of these accounts. It really depends on each person's own financial plan and what they're really trying to accomplish. But just to start with the traditional savings account, um, that's obviously what individuals usually start with. That's when you usually go into your bank, you say, hey, I'd like to open a regular account. And you're able to just, take money in, put money out. And that's really what you use with your debit card or whatever it may be. You write checks on it. That's your normal traditional savings account. Um, and it's usually around 0.01% APY. So obviously, that's not growing as fast as many people would love for their money to grow, right? So obviously looking at another account is a high yield online checking account. And these are getting more and more popular as, more and more people are using apps, to look at their financial statements, are kind of getting more comfortable with going online for their banking instead of going into an actual bank for it. And high yield online checking accounts are really, really good, um, and are really, really good for short term financial goals, like building just a short emergency fund. So this type of account works really similar to a regular checking account, where you open the account with either a financial services provider, um, on your own, whatever it may be, but you essentially deposit your money and then you make all your transactions that you normally would. The only difference being would that, a regular checking account, um, obviously is not growing as fast as a high yield online checking account. Also, it earns your higher interest, but the thing that you want to kind of look out for is that there could be, minimum deposits on these accounts. So it could be anywhere from $0, but it could also be, upwards into $1,000, or whatever it may be. So just make sure that you're reading the fine print, when you're looking at a high yield online checking account before you actually open it, because you don't want to have, try to keep up with the amount of money that you're putting in and not able to actually put it in. Hopping over to the next one is a money market deposit account. And these are really good for midterm financial goals, like saving for a higher ticket item. I don't know why every time I thought of this, I just kept thinking like saving for a TV. I don't even need a TV right now, so I don't know why I was thinking of that. Um, but MMDAs are best used if you already have a large chunk of cash, um, already saved, and you can be pretty flexible in how often you need to access the money, because usually there's a limit on how many times you can use this account per month. um, Sounds good. Thanks, Wayne. And so usually, there's a higher minimum deposit amount, and just like the high yield checking accounts, just make sure that you read up on the terms, as you can usually only get the number, your money out a certain number of times a month. As well as that, there's with MMDAs, there's usually a minimum balance that you have to have in the account, unless you're going to get fined on it. So obviously, you're going to hear this a lot from me, but just make sure that you're reading through the fine print on everything, checking it twice, pretend like you're Santa, um, and just make sure that you're, going over it, or you even have a guardian check it over, maybe a mentor check it over, but just make sure that you're doing your due diligence to yourself, so that you don't accidentally, get fined for something that you weren't aware of. Next is a CD, which is also called a certificate of deposit. And these are really, really good for future financial goals, usually about 1 to 5 years. And for CDs, you're not normally allowed to visit the money until the agreed period is up. And so, what is a CD? And it's really just a sum of money that you keep in a bank, or a credit union or financial um, services provider. But the whole point of it is that the sum generates interest, and it generates interest over the time of that period. So how it happens is that, the reason that people, utilize CDs is that when you're putting your money in, you're usually able to calculate the exact amount that you'll get, when you're able to take the money out. And as I said, for MMDAs, money market deposit accounts, these are usually for people that don't really need to worry about getting their money out, their liquid assets, as soon as possible, but can actually just kind of put their money in there and let it grow, for themselves. So if you wanted to do anything from like saving for a house, saving for a car, and you wanted to wait, 1 year, 5 years, whatever it may be, and you wanted the money to grow interest, growing your interest, and you not really get the chance to access it, so you wouldn't kind of take your money away from yourself, then CDs are probably the thing that you would want to be using. But don't worry if you're really stressed about, kind of, putting your money in and not being able to access it. There's things called no penalty CDs, where your money can be taken out. And then lastly, I'm only going to talk on this really shortly because this kind of jumps into the investment section, which is definitely a conversation for another time if any of you want to kind of reach out. Um, but mutual funds can either be opened by, a robo investor, trading account, or by financial professional. And what they are is just an investment program funded by shareholders, where they trade essentially for you. Um, and they trade on very diverse holdings, and it's really managed by you, or managed for you, I should say. And just as I said before, definitely read up on it because, depending on the mutual fund, there could be upfront charges or back end charges. You could have a percentage taken off, from your own account every single year. But the reason that I wanted to mention this is because obviously a lot of people are hearing about things in the investment market, and I'm obviously going to touch on this a little bit later, but obviously a lot of younger individuals are jumping into investments, jumping into day trading, with things like, Davey Day Trader from Barstool, who's always posting, um, or everything that happened with Reddit and the short squeeze, with GameStop and AMC. I'm sure you've all heard of that. It's been in the news kind of everywhere. But I just wanted to tell you that there's other ways to invest, where you don't have to worry about checking the markets every single day. You can have people do it for you. So those are really just the different types of interest-bearing accounts, that you could actually put your money in, depending on your own financial situation. So obviously they all kind of differ from each other, and depending on you yourself and your own financial goals, you may only use one of these accounts for 5 years, or you may use all five. And so now, kind of just going into a couple other money saving tips for younger individuals. So I'd say these are probably like the top um, five really good money saving tips I know I wish I knew, like 4 years ago. And the first one is to really know what you're working with. So this is like create a budget. And when I say budget, I mean go through all of your expenses. Try not to kind of leave anything out, or forget about things that you might spend money on, because you're only really hurting your own financial goals for yourself. And really try to learn to balance financial decisions. um, I don't know about you all, but I used to, when I was younger, I used to literally just swipe my card, like swipe my debit card, say whatever, like I used to joke with the cashier and say, "Ha, like I wonder if there's money on this card." But that's obviously not good because I had no budget. Um, I didn't know I had no budget. I didn't know exactly how much money I was spending on whatever items it was. And there was no really way to hold myself accountable. So the definite number one thing is to have a budget, and really try to stick within the means of that budget. Kind of piggybacking off the budget thing though, is understand your own personal money pitfalls. So what I mean about this is find out where your big spending usually comes from. It could be anywhere from, if you're really into computer programming, you really like software developing, you probably spend a lot of money on electronics. If you're somebody who, at the end of the day, is really stressed out and you're like, I'm hopping on Amazon, I'm hopping on all these different accounts and buying a bunch of clothes or doing whatever, shopping is probably going to be your money pitfall. And we can just go on and just say any type of pitfall. I want you all to think right now, like, what is probably your money pitfall where you're like, wow, I definitely spend a lot more money on this than I think that I should. Um, but just really find out where your big spending usually comes from, and see if there's any ways or anywhere that you can kind of cut down on that. Obviously, without taking away from your own personal experience in your life goals. You don't want to go from like 100 to zero right away, but you want to make sure that you're living within your means, and budgeting well. The third one, and this kind of has to do with those accounts that I was just talking about, but I really like kind of speaking on out of sight, out of mind savings. So separate your savings and your checkings account, at the minimum. So make sure that the money that you're spending on a day to day is not the same as the money that you're using to save up, every single day for whatever it may be. Because guaranteed, 9 times out of 10, if they're both in the same account, you're gonna dip into your savings, and it's gonna start as, oh yeah, it's okay. I'll just save a little bit more next month. But over time, you're gonna be spending more and more out of your savings, and you're essentially really just gonna have a checkings account, but no real savings account. But you want to be able to make sure that you're saving. So start at the minimum by separating your savings and checkings account, and try not to dip into your savings unless you absolutely have to. Um, the fourth one is automate what you can. And this is really going to help with credit, um, as well as just bill payments, and just really helping with timing as well. But with all the advantages of having everything online and having all these apps to pay everything, and having your whole entire bank in a one-stop shop right in your phone, um, you're able to know when exactly your bills are. You're able to know exactly what's going to be taken out and how much is going to be taken out. So try to automate as many bills as you possibly can. And this is going to be especially good for the younger people who can't really afford all those penalties getting taken out. So if you're younger, whatever you can automate, try to automate it, because you don't want, um, whether it's an overdraft fee, or you don't want to not pay an account and then have them charge you an extra $50. These are just things that can sound like really silly, but I guarantee you, just being able to do it is going to save you so much money. Especially if you're a person like me who's super, super forgetful. Um, the fifth one is to start thinking about retirement. And I cannot stress this one enough, whether it's an IRA, a 401k, um, even just a small type of investment strategy. Make sure that you're starting to think about retirement and really taking advantage of all the compounding interest that you have as a young individual. A lot of people go into their jobs right out of college, and right away they're just like, oh, I really don't have to worry about, retirement. That's so long for now. That's 40 years from now. But as I showed you right at the beginning, yeah, it's 40 years, but if you could save $350 a month every month and reach $1 million by 65 compared to $800, $1,000, I guarantee you that that's gonna, change the stress on your life. So those are kind of just five money saving tips that I really think are beneficial, especially for people around my age and a little bit younger. So now what can we kind of do with all of these? So to start with, one is aim to save approximately 15 to 20% of your gross income. So if you're younger, whatever your job may be, it doesn't matter if you're, making $5,000 over the summer, or you're making, like 50, $60,000 straight out of college. It doesn't matter what it is, but try to make sure that you're aiming to save at least 15 to 20% of your own personal paycheck. So I call it like a personal tax. And it's going right to your savings, not to your checkings. And I just want to ask right now, does anybody know what the national average of savings is, the savings rate? And I'll tell you right now, it's under 10%. Of course, Reba. Yes, Reba, you are perfectly correct. It is 4%. And so the reason that, you know, the national average is 4% is that, people are essentially living kind of paycheck to paycheck, not able to save within their means. And as young individuals, um, whether you're living at home still, you're in college, whatever it may be, I guarantee you there are ways to kind of cut costs and look back at your spending, and be able to kind of save that 15 to 20%. And just to show you the difference at just saving that amount compared to the national averages is that I actually calculated it. If you just graduated school, and you got a job that was paying you $45,000, and you absolutely love this job and you were like, I'm going to stay here until I'm 65, and you're never going to invest money, you're not going to do anything, you're just going to get your $45,000 paycheck every single year. If you were to save 4% of your money, by the time you retire you'd have $217,000 in a nest egg. If you were to save 15% though, compared to that 4%, that $217,000 is now $816,000. And that's not even talking about compounding interest, or putting your money into any of those accounts that we previously talked about. That's strictly just talking about the difference of saving that extra 11%. Um, and I'm sure we could all find ways to kind of cut costs on there. Um, the next one is set up direct deposit from your paycheck to a savings account. So this piggybacks right off of the out of sight, out of mind type of mindset, where try to you're able to either go to your bank and do it, or go to whoever's in your HR for whatever job you have right now, and just tell them that you would like a certain percentage of your paycheck deposited to a separate account. And that account could either be, um, your high yield savings account, um, your regular savings account, whatever it may be. The whole point is that that money is coming right out of sight, out of mind, and going right to your savings. And you're not even giving yourself a chance to even spend it. So if you had a high ticket item that you were like, maybe I should buy for this weekend, that money's already in your savings. You can't touch it. So try to do that, and try to make sure that at least a portion, that self tax, is coming right out of your paycheck and going right into your savings. Um, the next one is to build a 1-year emergency fund. So as you're saving and as you're saving, just make sure that you are building a fund for yourself, and it's going to be so helpful, especially if anything happens, that you're no longer spending money from your paycheck as it comes in, but you actually have a nice nest egg that you can take from. And then, as I said before, begin a tax deferred savings plan such as an IRA, a 401k, a 403b. If you want to figure out exactly what they mean, go talk to your HR. Each one has a separate tax implication, as well as kind of how it grows. So to really find out which one you have, I would definitely suggest you talk to your HR. 401ks usually always come with your company. You can open up an IRA separately that kind of stays with you. Um, but the whole point is that once you're growing it right now, I'm going to keep saying this, is that you're able to take advantage of all the compounding interest. And that kind of jumps into number 5, which is if your employer offers a savings match, contribute enough to get the whole match. So where some people will, try to throw in 10% of their money into a 401k, a retirement plan, whatever it may be, some companies actually match a certain percentage. So if your company matched 5% and you threw in 5%, now you have 10% in there, but you're only spending 5%. You're able to take that extra money and put it somewhere else where it can grow for you as well. So just make sure that you kind of check off all of these, and you'll be in a nice sound position. So right now, we're just kind of looking at building credit, and um, obviously, if there's any super, super big credit issues, reach out to me. I can get you in touch with a somebody who can help you out with your credit. But just to kind of go over building credit. So the number one biggest thing is kind of plan how you're going to use that credit in the first place. If you're going to get a credit card, and emphasis on credit card, if you're younger, please don't open up multiple credit cards, as opening up multiple line of credits will affect your credit score in a negative way. Um, but if you're going to get a credit card, make sure you do not spend more money than you have cash available. So if you only have, $300 in your checkings account, but your credit score or your credit card limit is $1,000, do not spend $1,000. Spend maximum of what you have able to pay it off that month. And so if you're wondering, I don't know if I can actually even get a credit card. I just started working on my credit. So there's a couple ways that you can kind of go about this. So the first one is to become an authorized user on whether it's your guardians or any family members' credit cards. Obviously, you want to make sure that they have good credit and they're in good credit standing. And you can be an authorized user and be able to access that. And that's how you can kind of grow credit through there. But also, if you're in college, see if you qualify for a student credit card. And if you have a low credit score, look into a secured credit card. So what a secured credit card is that instead of you paying for whatever purchases and then you paying the credit card company back, um, wish I got this advice when I was 20. Me too, and I'm 23. um, but if you, what was I saying? Oh yeah, so the secured credit card, instead of you paying the money back after you spend it, um, all you have to do is you give the credit card company, maybe it's $200, $300 a month, whatever it may be, and then you're able to spend it down from there. So you're able to build your credit through the credit card, and and the reason that the credit card companies do this is because they know that you can't default because you're paying it up front. Um, the second one is to review your credit report. So you can utilize multiple companies to monitor credit reporting. You're actually entitled by law a free credit report once a year from each of the three major credit bureaus. So if you went to annualcreditreport.com every 3 months and got a credit score from, if it's Bureau 1, Bureau 2, Bureau 3, that adds up to a whole year. So every 4 months, you're able to, for free, see your credit score. So look at that. And this is just a way that you can continually monitor the accuracy of all your reports. Um, and then for number three, just make all financial payments on time. I know I just kind of alluded to it, but really try to keep your credit card debt to 30% of your limit. So just because your credit card company is giving you $1,000, don't spend $1,000 a month. Try to spend about $300 max, and pay that off. And just remember, if money's tight 1 month and you don't know if you're going to be able to pay off something, that paying the minimum balance is a lot better than missing a payment outright. Um, so I'm going to say that again. So paying the minimum balance is a lot better than paying or than not paying the balance at all. Um, and you'll see why in the credit score breakdown. But just see if non-credit bill payments count towards your credit history. If you are looking to rent an apartment, you just got out of school, you're looking at that. Check if your actual landlord kind of reports the payments towards a credit bureau. If they do, paying on time for your rent is super beneficial because it can help your credit score. And then number five is just don't be afraid to ask for help. There's so many professionals out there that can help you out with your credit. Literally, it's not exactly what I do, but if you ever needed help, reach out to me and I can get you in contact with the many people that I work with that could help you out. Um, but just to look at the credit score breakdown, for this is exactly what your the credit bureaus look at. And payment history makes up 35% of the breakdown. Amounts owed, so what you actually owed, is about 30%. Length of credit history is 15%. So if you opened up multiple cards, whatever card was, kind of using the longest, try not to close that one, because that card is going to be what's beneficial, because the longer you have cards open for, the more beneficial it is for your credit score. Four is new credit. So if you just opened up a bunch of cards, obviously your credit score is going to drop a little bit. And then five is just credit mix. So just seeing if you actually have a mix of different, credit in there. Running out of time a little bit. So I'm going to kind of go through this a little bit faster. Um, but for anybody thinking about student loans and obviously stressed about it, I know I am, even though we don't have to pay it till September. Um, but just want you to know that there's a couple different things that you can do when it comes down to your student loan debt. And a lot of people try to pay it off right away. Um, However, depending on what your actual balance is and the interest on it, it may be more beneficial for you to only pay the minimum payment on your student loan and then put the rest in an account that's growing faster than your interest. And then by the time your loan's done, you're actually going to essentially have more money than if you were to just pay off your debt as soon as possible, as well as you'll have more cash flow. So you'll have more money on you at the end of every single month, instead of if you were to throw all your money into student loans and paying it off. But of course, that is with every specific situation. It depends on the interest and the principal amount. Um, and then just some action items if you're kind of interested in the repayment of student loans. Usually when you're about a junior or senior in college, that's when you start to think about it. But you can always go to the student loan website. And then you can also, as I just mentioned, request that free credit report just in case you need to refinance or just in case you want to consolidate. And then just make sure submit all the full complete application. And then if you are able to refinance, and that'll be a question for another time. I don't know if everybody just heard my dog. Um, that's what you'll be able to do. But then lastly, of course, do not be afraid to ask for help, whether it's an advisor, a guardian, or just a mentor. There are a lot of people that are obviously older than us that would love to kind of offer up their own resources. So now we're kind of in the home stretch, and I'm just going to quickly go over two things which not a lot of younger people think about that they should, and that's investing and retirement income. So just why pay attention to retiring now? So as you can see, all five of these are all different types of ways that you can get paid in retirement, whether it's Social Security, annuities, pension plans, certificate of deposits, which I talked about a little bit earlier, and then life insurance for cash value life insurance, not just regular life insurance. Um, but to jump into the investments, which I really want to kind of point out because I know a lot of younger people are really thinking about investing and just taking their last $100 of their paycheck and throwing it into the market. But I just want to show you kind of how investing really works and why it's kind of helpful that once you're in the market that you want to try to stay in the market. So at the beginning of this little graph right here, it's the Great Recession. And it's showing that over time, even though there may be dips, there may be peaks and valleys, over time, over the course of the, what is it, 80, 90 years, that investments and the compound annual return rate of return is growing every single year. So for small stocks, it's 12.1%. For large stocks, it's 10.2%. And then for inflation, it's 2.9%. And as I said at the beginning, whatever account you're putting your money in, you want it to be growing faster than inflation, because $1 million today is not worth $1 million 30 years from now in terms of how inflation moves. And so just a couple more slides before Amanda and Lisa kick me off. Just wanted to point out also, to stay the course is that, this is to show the importance of kind of staying invested once you're invested. And if you're older too, please take advantage of this as well. This is to show you three individuals who had $100,000, and then obviously in the market crash of '08, decided to take their money out or keep their money in or reinvest. And so the person in purple decided to take their money out completely. They ended up losing about $45,000. The person in green decided to reinvest about a month later. Reinvest a little while later, and they ended up with about $55,000 more than they started with. And the last person just decided, you know what, my money's in there, it's going to grow. The stock market has historical, rate of return of growing every single year. Um, they actually ended up with almost $140,000 more than what they started with, which is obviously about $180,000 more than the person who decided to exit the market and invested just strictly in cash, which is the purple person. And then lastly, and this is super, super important, um, if you're young and all you want to do is day trade and invest, I really just want you to look at this. Um, don't try to time the market. A lot of people try to time the market and try to guess on, what days are going to be the best days, what days are going to be the new GameStop, the new AMC, to the moon. I hear it all the time. Trust me, it's so hard to fall into these kind of traps, but just to show you that if you just kept your money in and invested annually, you have 8.2%. And look how drastic, your rate of return drops. Just if you miss the 10 best days, you're at 4.5%. If you miss the 20 best days, 2%. If you miss the best month of trading in a whole year, you have no rate of return. And then if you miss anything more than that, you're actually losing money. So just know that if you are going to get into investing, do your research as much as you can, and just make sure that you're not really trying to follow off of trends or time the market, but instead you're really just trying to grow your money and just follow the historical rate of return. And so just lastly is, if you ever need help, as I said, like multiple times, reach out to a financial advisor, reach out to a mentor, reach out to somebody who's older, and I guarantee you they'll get you in contact with somebody that they've worked with before in the past. But there's a lot of financial professionals who would love to help out younger people and just offer some guidance. So don't be afraid to ask. Connect with people on LinkedIn, give them a chat, say, hey, I'd love to talk to you about something really quickly. And I guarantee you 9 times out of 10 that person would love to help you out. So I know I started late. Wasn't able to kind of, run through it as slow as I would love to, but we got through it. Does anybody have any kind of quick questions for the end right now?
So Aaron, Lisa here. I just want to say thank you so much for this. I tweeted out on Facebook because I wish I knew all this info when I was in college, right? So great info. I'm glad we brought this, Amanda and Aaron, to the LEAP program. Thank you so much. We got to mobilize and share this widely, out in our community. I think figure out how to establish partnership with churches in different places, because I think this is really, really very important info. So thank you. Great job.
Yeah, also, I just have to point out, I sent this to you earlier, but talking about investing is so important right now. And I think that sometimes there's a vibe of if we don't have enough, we shouldn't be investing, right? And that is not true. I think that's not a correct way of thinking about our money. And I think that we have to take it back, right? And we have to be informed and try, because I wish I'd started investing when I was 20, 21. I started maybe 5 years ago, but I didn't know. I thought I didn't have enough to invest. And so I love that you brought that into it, because as we're seeing in the news, there's a lot of possibilities.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's exactly, what's the most important thing I would probably say for younger individuals like myself is that stigma of, thinking about my finances is for somebody who's older. It's not really for me. And, we're younger. Yeah, we may not make as much as people that have been in their jobs for 10, 20, 40 years. However, the compounding interest and being able to, just as you said, Amanda, to put it in accounts that are growing obviously faster than interest rates is going to just help over time, whether you're putting in $50 or growing in obviously as you grow with your money, you can put more money into those accounts, and it's just going to grow exponentially.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here. I added Aaron's email to the chat. I'll send out a little follow-up to everyone. I think some people had to hop off so that they have your contact information if they have more questions, which I appreciate you offering kind of a little bit of one-on-one support there.
Oh, of course.
Any last thoughts or any Lisa, anything else? I know I did some announcements at the beginning. I know we're just running over, but we are recruiting for our next mentor cohort, and that deadline is Wednesday. So if anyone on here knows, I know some of you are part of the current one. If you know of anyone, please let us know. There's still a little less than a week to get your applications in. So.
All right. Thanks,
Thank you
guys.
so much,
Yeah.
Aaron.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye,
Really appreciate
everyone.
it.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. Cheers, guys.